Okay, hello, welcome, good evening. Thank you for joining us for our CAASPP Parent Night. I am Beth Snade, the Assessment and Data Coordinator here at Compass Charter Schools. I'm happy that you were able to join me tonight, and joining me tonight from our staff are Erica Angelo and Brenda Lastly, assessment TOSAs and teachers here at Compass. They're going to help monitor our waiting room and monitor our chat as well. Okay, so our agenda for tonight, we will cover our mission and vision and values, then start with a couple poll questions to learn a little bit more about you and have a couple open-ended questions as well. We'll cover the acronyms I'll be using tonight, and then compare tests and assessments and talk about what standardized means. Then we'll move on into participation, including some calculations related to the California dashboard. Then I'll get into the details of CAASPP and CAST, and we'll wrap it up by giving you the opportunity to ask questions. Throughout the presentation, you may see hyperlinks on the slides. I'll be sharing a link to my presentation at the end, and I'll encourage you to view that and click on those links provided when you have some time to really look at them. Some of them are informational texts, and some are YouTube videos provided by the state. The presentation link will also be shared with the recording of our presentation on our Compass YouTube channel. So if you're watching the recording, you may pause and access the links to the presentation for further information. Our mission is to inspire and develop innovative, creative, self-directed learners, one scholar at a time. Our vision statement is to create a collaborative virtual learning community, inspiring scholars to appreciate the ways in which arts and sciences nurture a curiosity for lifelong learning and prepare scholars to take responsibility for their future success. Our values of achievement, respect, teamwork, integrity, and communication guide us in our interactions with scholars, parents, and colleagues. These tie into our mission and vision and remind us to remain scholar-focused. Okay, so we have two poll questions. I'm going to launch this for you, so you should see this coming up. The first one, in which grade is your child or children enrolled? And you can answer more than one grade if you have more than one child here at Compass. If you have scholars that are in grades that aren't a choice, go ahead and choose other. And then the second question, is your child or did your child or children take CAASPP last year? There are a couple options with those no responses. If your child is in grade 3 or 11 this year, they weren't eligible to take CAASPP last year. So go ahead and choose that if that's the case for the grade levels. And I'll give it just a few more minutes. Let me see where we are. And we only have about 42% participated in that poll. So go ahead and take a look at those questions and answer them. I'm not going to put those out publicly. Your name's not attached to them. It's a completely anonymous poll. If you're viewing the recording, we're going to give you an opportunity to answer some of our questions through a survey at the end. Okay, it looks like we have a whole span of grade levels here. And it looks like we're about 50-50 on taking CAASPP last year for the yes and no. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end our poll so we can keep moving forward. Thank you for participating in that. So now we've got a couple more questions for you, and your participation in these questions are optional. You'd add your response to the chat. So our first question, participating in CAASPP and testing in general can cause a lot of emotion. So are there any feelings about CAASPP that you would like to share and hope that we could talk about? If needed, my team is delighted to talk one-on-one after our session or set up a time that we can talk with you if you have additional questions. And our second question, is there a support you feel you or your scholar need in order to participate in CAASPP with peace of mind and confidence? So I'm going to give you just a few minutes to kind of think that through. And again, if you don't want to answer in the chat, we're going to give you the opportunity to answer these in a survey at the end with a link and a QR code. And for those attending live, our chat is set just to go to myself and my two co-hosts. So it's not public. Nobody else will see your responses. Okay, so we're going to keep moving. And again, you'll have the opportunity to answer those questions in a survey at the end if you don't feel like putting into the chat tonight. Okay, so we'll begin with our alphabet soup of acronyms. SBAC is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. California belongs to this consortium along with 11 other states, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Bureau of Indian Education. Through the work of thousands of educators, Smarter Balanced created an online assessment system aligned to Common Core state standards, as well as tools for educators to improve teaching and learning. CAASPP is the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. This is California's version of the Smarter Balanced Assessment. When discussing CAASPP, it refers to all Smarter Balanced summative assessments, which include ELA, or English Language Arts, math, and the CAST, the California Science Test. The CAASPP consists of two sections, the Computer Adaptive Test, or CAT, and a performance task, the PT. These two parts are separate assessments for ELA and math, but exist all together in the California Science Test. So test or assessment. Test and assessment are words that are used interchangeably, but I would love to challenge that and stop using the word test when we discuss state assessments, even STAR assessments. A test is a product, while assessment is a procedure or systematic process. Tests and assessments both give us data. We need to explore that data to understand it and determine if it's valid and reliable data. Tests are usually pass or fail. They are static, meaning they don't adapt. Everyone gets the same test or quiz. It's a set scale, usually out of 100 percentage points. Scholars are encouraged to study for their test since it's on a specific topic or section of their curriculum, and tests are completed after instruction. On the other hand, assessments are different. We are assessing their level of knowledge, but not specific section of curriculum. The assessments we use, both CAASPP and STAR, are dynamic, meaning they adapt to pinpoint a level of knowledge. Assessment is also fluid and can be done at any time. Assessments are used during and after instruction. There's a wider scale, not just out of 100 points, which means we might need to interpret the scores and the data. Scholars can't study for assessments. It's an accurate measure of what they know at that time. So to sum up, tests are products that measure a set of objectives. Assessment is a systematic process of documenting and using empirical data to measure knowledge and skills. Okay, so what's a standardized test? A standardized test is when all the students taking the test have to respond to the same set of carefully selected questions. This was typical of the previous California state assessments, which were paper-based, and every student in the same grade received the same test. Like we can all recall taking those tests in school, being mindful to color each bubble very carefully and not make any stray pencil marks. Those are no longer. Based on this definition of standardized test and the information I shared on the previous slide, we know that CAASPP state assessments are not tests, but we can also call a test or assessment standardized based on how it's administered and scored in a consistent or standard manner. This means that standardized tests or assessments are designed in such a way that the questions and interpretations are consistent and are administered and scored in a predetermined standard manner. It doesn't mean everyone gets the same test, just that the assessments are administered and scored following a standardized protocol or algorithm. So when we discuss the CAASPP and the CAST, the part that's standardized, or the part that's same for every scholar, is the directions they receive and the testing interface, which is how it's administered. But the assessment itself is different for every scholar based on their grade level and how they answer each question. No two scholars will have the same questions in the same order. Additionally, accessibility resources allow for scholars to access resources throughout the assessments to support the scholar. They're embedded in the test. These resources include universal tools, which are available to all scholars, such as the highlighter tool, the line reader, or the magnification or zoom feature. Designated supports are designated by the teacher or a teaching team if a need is indicated or if the scholar is already using these supports during daily instruction or schoolwork. These may include color contrast, mouse pointer size, and text-to-speech for question items. Accommodations are available for scholars with IEP or 504 plans. Accommodations must be written into these plans and have been discussed by the IEP or 504 teams. Scholars should already use these designated supports and accommodations or practice using them before CAASPP. Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit of the participation calculation, just a little bit of math to explain how participation affects our charter. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, requires all states to test at least 95% of all students and student groups in the English Language Arts Literacy, ELA, and mathematics and science. It also requires states to factor the participation rate into their accountability systems, which for California is the academic indicator. The academic indicator is on the California dashboard. The indicator includes ELA and math, but doesn't currently include science yet. So why is the California dashboard important? Well, AB 1505 align charter renewals with the California dashboard, which is California's accountability system. Our charters are authorized by school districts in each of the counties we serve, Los Angeles, San Diego, and Yolo. These authorizing districts must review our performance data, which includes CAASPP and STAR data, along with other indicators, and decide whether or not to renew our charter. They also added the requirement for verified data in AB 1505. So for our STAR and CAASPP data to be considered verified, we must meet the 95% participation rate for those assessments. For any district, school, or student group with less than 95% of students tested in CAASPP for ELA and math, the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, requires a penalty to be applied to the academic indicator. To meet this federal requirement, beginning with the 2022 dashboard, California will assign the lowest attainable scale score, or LOS, to each student needed to bring the participation rate of the school, district, or student group up to 95%. The loss assigned to each of these students who did not test will be used in calculating the distance from standard, or DFS. So I'm going to share a simple example as I go through these calculations to try to make this a little more clear. I'm going to be walking through the calculation to demonstrate how a small number of scholars not participating can affect the dashboard. This example will be for grades 3 through 8 in ELA. So if we have 100 scholars enrolled during the testing window, we would need to have 95% of them participate in the CAASPP assessments to meet the requirement. If we only had 80 participating, or 80%, we're short 15 scholars or 15% of the requirement. Those 15 scholars are assigned the loss for calculations. The assignment of loss doesn't affect the scholar's record, it's just for the calculations. So our DFS, distance from standard, without penalty, or the distance from standard of the 80 scholars that participate, has the potential to be 1,300 above standard, or a positive 1,300 DFS. We then need to subtract participation rate penalty of 4155 to see, let me get caught up, of 4155 to see our DFS with a penalty of negative 2855. We then divide that by the 95 scholars that were needed to reach the 95%. So had 95 scholars participated in CAASPP, our DFS had the potential to be a positive 1628 or higher, but it now becomes a negative 30.05. This means instead of having an average of 16 points higher than the achievement level 3 standard met, we have an average of 30 points below standard. That puts every scholar group for the academic indicator on the low category for the California dashboard. This is a simple example just to show how a few scholars can affect our accountability on the California dashboard. It shows how important it is to meet our participation requirements under ESSA. So now that we understand the distance from standard and how it's calculated using our simple example, let's look at our actual numbers for each charter. You can see in the far right column, we are low or very low for ELA and math in each of our charters for the most recent reporting year, 2021, 2022. Looking back at 2020 to 2021, in the lavender shaded column, we didn't have dashboard data, the left lavender. This was because of the suspension of CAASPP testing during the pandemic and the alternate assessment choice that was available that school year. I've also included our participation numbers for our internal assessments in the light blue columns. Based on these numbers, we did not meet the 95% threshold for this data to be considered verified. So the California dashboard is where the DFS and participation calculations show up as the academic indicator. There are several other indicators on the dashboard. In the fall of 2022, we shared information for several weeks in the Monday morning update about the California dashboard indicators. You can go back and review those in Parent Square. This year's dashboard, which was released in December of 2022, shows a status-only indicator. They are reflective of the CAASPP performance and participation from the 2021-22 school year. This is shown with a status of very low, low, medium, high, or very high. You'll see those purple line indicators there above the big table. As I showed on the participation slide for our example academic indicator would be considered low. And the previous slide indicated our actual academic indicators for our charters are low or very low in ELA and math. So next year's dashboard, released in the fall of 2023, will shift from this purple status-only indicators to this 5x5 grid that's on the slide. The example shown on the slide is a 5x5 table where performance is plotted on the left or the y-axis, and the change as compared to the prior year is plotted on the top or the x-axis. This example grid is for grades 3 to 8 in ELA to follow the population that we had in our participation example. We would hope to increase our actual performance level from low or very low to at least medium. So using our example population of 100 scholars again, if we didn't have the participation penalty, we would have had a DFS of 16.28. This would actually have been in the high level. If our sample calculation of negative 30.05 was the prior year, and our no penalty calculation of 16.28 was current year, we would have had an increase of more than 45 points, which would assign the color blue in the 5x5 table. Let me say that again. Using our participation example of 100 scholars, if those 15 scholars had participated, our indicator would have been high instead of low. So why is the California dashboard important? As I mentioned earlier, Assembly Bill 1505 aligned charter renewals with the California dashboard. Our charters are authorized by school districts in each of the counties we serve. These districts are required to review our performance data, which includes CAASPP and STAR data, along with other indicators, to decide whether or not to renew our charters. And for our data to be considered verified, we must meet the 95% participation rate. So what does this colored table mean for us? If we show all red or orange tiles on our indicators, we would be considered in the low performance category and would be, by default, denied renewal. A charter that meets neither high or low indicators is placed in the middle performance category and may be renewed for a 5-year term. A charter with blue and green across all indicators is eligible for a 5, 6, or 7-year renewal term. I know you all love Compass as much as I do, and we want to be here to support your scholars. This is how participation directly impacts our charter renewal process. So I know that's a lot of heavy information. Let's get to all these details about CAASPP. So now that we have some details and specifics to share about CAASPP, as stated earlier, CAASPP is the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, which includes ELA, math. It is given to scholars in grades 3 through 8 and 11. CAST, our California Science Test, is taken by scholars in grades 5, 8, and once in high school. Compass chooses to assign the science test to our 11th grade scholars. However, 10th grade scholars can elect to take the science test if they are completing their last science course this semester. Additionally, grade 12 scholars will take CAST if they didn't take it previously in high school. CAST and CAASPP are paired on our timeline beginning March 27th to April 7th, and then we will resume CAASPP again after spring break on April 17th for makeup testing and continue until we reach our participation requirement of 95%. So let's get into more details. The CAASPP and the CAST assessments are computer-based and require a laptop or desktop computer or an iPad with an external keyboard, and require that the secure browser is downloaded to the device ahead of time. Personal Chromebooks that you purchased by yourself are not compatible with the secure browser, but school-managed Chromebooks that you may have used your funds to purchase are compatible. We offer loaner computers for testing if necessary. So if you already know you're going to need a loaner computer that you don't have a device that's compatible, please let your supervising teacher know. They can request one and our IT department will get that sent out to you with a prepaid shipping label so you can return it. As mentioned previously, the CAASPP for ELA and math both consist of two sections, the Computer Adaptive Test or CAT and a Performance Task or PT, which are based on the Common Core state standards. The CAT includes a range of item types such as selected response, constructed response, tables, fill-in, graphing, and so forth. The PTs are extended activities that measure a scholar's ability to integrate knowledge and skills across multiple standards, which is a key component of college and career readiness. The CAST or science test includes standalone or discrete items and a performance task all together in one test. The CAST is aligned with the California Next Generation Science Standards. We use Compass teaching staff as our assessment proctors. This year, the California Department of Education and Educational Testing Service have approved the remote administration of CAASPP assessments for this school year for students in California receiving instruction remotely. This includes all scholars at Compass. This school year, our assessment window begins March 27th. The estimated time for the ELA assessment is 2.5 to 3 hours. For math, the estimated time is 2 to 2.5 hours. And the estimated time for the California Science Test is 1 to 2 hours. These estimates are actual testing time. They don't include the time it takes to log in, the time to receive directions, downloading secure browser. It's just the actual testing time. These estimates also do not mean that there are time limits on the CASPP or CAST. The assessments are untimed and allow scholars to work at their own pace to complete each assessment. The score reports are typically available 8 to 12 weeks after our testing ends. So our testing is going to end May 31st, and so it'll be 8 to 12 weeks after that we will have access to the score reports. They can be accessed in the parent or scholar portal in School Pathways. If your scholar took the CASP last year and you're interested in what that score report, even if they did at another California public school, you should be able to find those score reports in the parent portal. We've been hosting some live prep sessions, CASP prep sessions for the last 5 weeks for the scholars, Fridays at noon. We have 2 live sessions left, this Friday, March 17th, and next Friday, March 24th, specifically targeting technology for your scholars so that they'll feel more comfortable accessing the assessments. We built a resource document for scholars, and the recordings are posted in the Compass YouTube channel under the CASP Prep Workshops playlist. Topics we've covered so far include details about each subject, ELA, math, and science, tips and strategies for navigating the assessment interface, how to combat anxiety, including breathing exercises, and resources to interact with the universal tools, including the practice and training tests. If you haven't been attending with your scholar, please take a look at our recordings. So thank you again for joining me for this presentation. We will post the recording of this presentation on the Compass YouTube channel. Please scan this QR code on your screen to fill out our survey. For those watching the recording, you'll be able to answer the questions that we posed earlier in our presentation by using this QR code. If you're attending with us live, we're going to put a link to this survey in the chat for you so that you can access the survey.